It's Auto In with your hosts, Seth Kelly and Garrett Walder, with special guest, Harrison Witcher. In this episode, what's the difference between the producer and the engineer in charge? Who does the director get to boss around? And what crazy cereal does Garrett have for us this time? Without further ado, Auto In.
Welcome back, everybody, to Auto In. Today, my name is Seth Kelly. It might be some other name later. I don't know. I literally made fun of my friend one time for saying that exact thing. So that's a lovely way to start the podcast.
It all comes full circle, Seth.
Our other host today is named...
Hello, I am Garrett Walder. You may remember me from episode... Oh, no, did I lose it?
Just check
no, hold
the
on.
number
Episode
of episodes
2,
that he's in.
Episode 4, Episode 6, and 7.
And this
now
episode.
this one. Yeah, 8.
Episode
Are we on episode 8
9.
already?
No,
So
episode 8.
All but 2.
No.
All
wait.
but 3.
Oh, I may have counted wrong.
I
Right.
think you miscounted.
No, did I lose it? No, I lost it. Oh, that's so sad.
Okay, one of these days we're gonna figure it out by the end of the podcast. In the meantime, our guest today is...
Harrison, hi. I haven't been on here before. I'm actually usually I'm behind the boards. I'm doing what Kelly's doing today. Good old Seth.
Yeah.
However, today I am a guest and have the mic in front of me, and I am talking more than usual. So this is going to be a lot of fun because I love to talk in general.
Yeah, you talk more than usual on a podcast.
I just talk too much in general. So this is perfect for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Today, what we're going to be talking too much about is directing, producing, and being the engineer in charge. We're going to try and fit all of those into one episode because they're pretty big jobs, but directing, I think there's the most to talk about, but we'll just get into it. Are volunteers assigned any of these jobs, or is it just student workers?
So usually it's predominantly student workers, but I have seen volunteers who get scheduled for these jobs, usually later in the season. And that's actually what we as a department want, is to put volunteers in those positions, even if they are totally unprepared, because the best experience and the best way to learn in this job is to be put on the hot seat, learn how to do it on the spot. That's actually how I learned to do most of the jobs in the department. Was not because, I got to go watch a tutorial video. It's, okay, this person has left the department who knew the most about this subject. You're next up in line. Go figure it out. Now, it's not that extreme for volunteers, but, kind of like I said, what we want is volunteers to be put in those positions, right? Because student workers, our role is to be behind the scenes and make it the stuff that, if something goes wrong, that's our job to fix. We don't expect volunteers to learn that, right? Because we want to put them in the position to learn a skill set. Mm-hmm. And our job is to minimize failure while doing that. So yeah, it's not just student workers who get assigned the quote unquote big jobs. A lot of times it is the volunteers themselves. Yeah.
So you said we like to minimize failure as they continue to, learn to do all of these skills. In order to get there, though, people have to, this is volunteers and student workers, anybody who's assigned any job, they do have to fail a good bit in order to learn the skills. And so putting them in a live production setting is a great opportunity for them to learn how to react to failure and not to, hate on themselves for the rest of the production, and just to be like, okay, well, that was a problem. Here's the way to solve it. Okay, we solved it. Now let's, we're at this point. Let's make it the best production we can from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Most of my first times on any position so far have been absolute dumpster fires. I usually screw up horrendously in some way my first time that I'm put on there. And so that's why I'm always terrified whenever it's like it shows up like, okay, Garrett, you're on replay. And I'm just like, oh, no, I've never done that before.
Right. But the next time you get on, you learn, this is the mistake I made last time. Here's how I kind of fixed it, or I was told to fix it. And then next time you get on, you know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
More or less.
I'll even say that can even apply to running camera, right? So the first time I ran camera was for commencement. This was back when Greg Hollabaugh was here. I was freshly hired, I was there maybe 2 weeks. And Greg said, "All right, you're running camera." No idea what I was doing. I mean, I've done like, camcorders and stuff like that, but never like
Sure.
a full blown like camera rig set up and all. And I remember I was like, Greg's yelling at me. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, Greg, help me out. And thankfully we got through it. But from that point on, like immediately we had a soccer game like the next day. I think like my camera skill just improved so much over just one day of failure, right? I mean, even the first time I directed, I did engineering and being EIC or, TDing or whatever. The best advice I can give is welcome that failure because that really is what makes you better. And that's true in everything that you'll do in life, any career you're in or what. You can't stay perfect all the time. You shouldn't stay perfect all the time, right?
Right.
Because you can't grow as an individual in what you do unless you fail, because you grow from those failures. So that's my biggest advice is, be okay with it. It stings. It definitely stings. I hate being told I'm wrong. I hate it when Chris tells me I'm wrong. But that is, I think, single-handedly what helped me grow, not only as an individual, but also in my skill set and in my job and in my profession.
Yeah. So we've given a lot of good advice about directing and producing and EIC. We do want to establish what those are. So what are the jobs of a director and a producer and an EIC? We'll start with director. Director.
So the director is the person who is, you almost want to say, calling the shots. The director, if all is done correctly, should only be telling what the technical director to take, and occasionally what shots the camera should get. He or she shouldn't have to worry about, is shading right? Is audio right? That should all be taken care of. So it's really not, the director really isn't the captain. You think of the director as the communicator. And actually in the professional world, they're usually, I worked a gig with ESPN once. There were 4 people in a super small truck, production truck, and myself. So there were a total of 5. And the person who is, directing was also technical directing. So taking all the cameras. So that person was completely in charge of cameras. And then there was another person in charge of audio, and that person was the engineer as well. And then a completely different person was, solely in charge of replay, because in the professional world, that really is so highly demanded. It's a highly demanding job. And then there was the producer who communicated between all the different comm channels, and also was doing graphics. So in the professional world, depending on the size of your production crew, if it's a small crew, you're doing a lot of jobs at once, which I think is great because we'll have events here, broadcasts where we don't have a full crew and we're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Well, perfect opportunity to practice because you do 2 things at once. You have to multitask. So all that to say, the director is primarily the communicator between the cameras and the technical director, at least in our world.
Yeah.
And then next would be
engineer in charge.
Engineer in charge. My favorite adjective for the engineer in charge is the "oh crap, who do we call" person.
Right. Yeah.
And I have the perception of, oh my gosh, this person just sits on their rear end and doesn't do anything. They sit on their phone waiting. That is not the case. You are in the hot seat if something goes wrong. The engineer has to have knowledge of all the systems put in place, from patching to Dante to all, everything that communicates to each other that eventually gets up to the control room and then gets pushed out. The engineer has to be knowledgeable in all those areas, and it's their responsibility to float around and to fix and assist anything that's needed. If you've worked a baseball game, usually they'll float around and occasionally relieve you while you can eat a snack or something. So that's the engineer in charge. They are the person who fixes things. And another good way to think about it is the director usually has more creative mindset, while the engineer in charge is great at problem solving. Now you can have both. I have both, and I don't mean that in a bragging sense. I'm majoring in music, so I am predominantly creatively minded. But being the engineer in charge and working here has actually forced me to be able to become a really good problem solver within the department. So
you're majoring in music right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's another good thing to bring up is that broadcasting, like working in broadcasting, this is a bit of a tangent, but working in broadcasting has very wide implications outside of just broadcasting sports.
Yes.
Like if you watch, if you follow DBU sports and you see all the broadcasts, you may come to the conclusion that, well, I'm not broadcasting sports, so working, volunteering for broadcast and things like that isn't going to give me any, valuable skills for other areas. It certainly does. Like you'll need to know what an XLR cable is and how to run it in order to do anything professional with music.
Yes.
Or you'll need to know audio mixing, even in live kind of capacities, especially if you're working with, concert situations and things like that. And it's also just good to, creatively visualize in other aspects besides live production.
Yeah, and even like mixing a live, broadcast versus you're mixing in the studio trying to get a track ready. That's an entirely different podcast for a different day.
Yeah.
But you're right. Even in like today's world with COVID going on, you see not only sports being broadcasted, but what I've seen more than anything else are all the bands that can't tour have been doing live stream concerts. And that has become a huge market for production teams. That's actually what's given most of them work.
Yeah, definitely. There's a band called All Time Low, and they recently did a digital tour where you would buy a ticket and they would send you like the tour shirt that you were supposed to get at the actual concert. And then they were just live streaming their entire concert.
I did the same thing. There's a band called Under Oath, and they played through I think 4 or 5 of their albums. And we bought, it was 3. It was their biggest 3 albums. And so it was like $30 and they had all this merch for it. It was cool. And it was 1 album a week. And it was on this huge like circle stage and it was a phenomenal production.
That's really cool.
But yeah, a lot of bands started doing that. My band actually explored doing that, and I was going to head up that. We just didn't have the funds or anything to get it going. But all that being said, like just because we're working in sports right now and you're not the biggest sports person, that is totally cool. But look at it and be like, oh, wow, I am getting real like experience so that if I want to go into radio, if I want to go into the, music broadcasting, I'm at a show and I'm doing, live imaging on the walls or, whatever it may be, you're getting that experience and this can be used. All the stuff you learn here can be used elsewhere in the real world. So it's very valuable.
Yeah. Also, just any job that requires multitasking. I mean, you do a lot of multitasking in broadcast situations, especially if you're one of the more knowledgeable people in terms of technology during a live broadcast and people don't know what to do. Like maybe there are a lot of volunteers. You may have to direct while, working out this technological issue. Today for video production, actually, at the time of this recording, it was today, like just a few hours ago. We were working on a live production assignment, and we had one person, scrunched up at a table right like in front of the cameras where it was zoomed in enough so you couldn't see it, running like a teleprompter, and then she had to like crawl out and then like be one of the talents, and then we had to, coordinate that while I was running 3 cameras at once and being kind of the producer, so the communication between the director and all the talent, and we were running around all the time, except of course, when the B-roll was running and we just like didn't have a lot to do. I was just kind of running around because I had to, but because I didn't have to, but because I didn't know what else to do, and we were all just kind of sitting there awkwardly like,
yeah, that brings up a good point too, that even if your plan is to like be in front of the camera, right? It really helps to know stuff behind the camera because that can even be an in, right? Because it's like, you can both help on the actual stream and be talent there, but then behind it, you can then be working on stuff as well when you're not needed on the camera, right? Because like the amount of work that happens off screen is infinitely more than the amount of work that happens on screen, as in that's being filmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all the setup, all the tear down, even all the stuff that happens as the recording is going.
Yeah. All three are very good jobs to kind of jump into. You do have to, I think, in order to direct or produce or EIC, like in order to do any of them, maybe producer less than director or EIC, you do have to have some experience in other roles. Like the first role that Chris gives a volunteer is often not directing, because in order to direct the shader on what to do, you got to know how the CCU works, or in order to work with the audio mixer, you got to know how the X32 works, or in order to work with the TD, you got to know how the TriCaster works. And this also goes for like the camera operators as well. You got to know how the cameras work.
Yeah, and even be knowledgeable about what sport or what event you're doing. So another big piece of advice I could give is before you run a position, run a camera, be the director or whatever, watch film on how, things are done. What do you like? I grew up watching baseball all the time. So I knew in my mind, okay, I want to see this. How can I get it? How can I get there? So a lot of the times I was, stranded up there on camera 3 because I was the best at that job. And that was because I knew what to look for. So as a camera op, as a producer, know what to look for on camera. Know your guy, know your, the person you're supposed to be tracking, because that'll make the job 10 times easier, and you're not guessing. You can go up there and do that position with confidence because you know what to look for and you know what to get.
You know what I'm going to do with confidence right now is
What are you going to do, Seth?
Call a break.
Whoa!
Yeah, me and Garrett are gonna have some sort of like competition on like how bad our
how good we can
get.
How good we can transition.
Or how good. I
Okay,
guess
Linus.
I guess it depends on how you're looking at it. So we're gonna take a break, and when we get back, we're gonna talk about some unspoken rules, maybe some funny stories, and we might do a handstand competition. I mean, anything can happen.
I'm eager for that.
Yeah. Well, stay with us, and then we'll get to it. All right, we are back to Auto In. Yeah, it gets our guests every time. It's like there's no music or anything over here, so it's just kind of like, okay, we're going to take a break, and we're back.
That's funny because whenever I do my sports podcast, there's like no break in it. Like we have a commercial at the very beginning, and then it's just like an hour worth of like material, and it's just talking, which is awesome. We all love sports that much, but it definitely like you're like, okay, this is kind of dragging on for a bit, and the break is appreciated.
I'm glad. If only we had the music to like to guide us and maybe have us like jam for a solid 7 seconds.
You could put that in post.
Yeah, or I could like load up a hotkey.
Oh,
maybe
you really could. We could also get sound effects, Seth.
We could. We've been like building up sound bites since like the first episode. I think Will's got like a we're international, baby, like sound bite that he wants to put into the hotkeys.
I mean, of course we need bro sound effect number 2 though.
I think we have bruh sound effect number 1 in here already, but that's like
that's good enough.
You found it? You found bruh sound effect number 1?
All right, so we're gonna get back to talking about directing, producing, and EIC. So to answer the question, like who's the go-to person for director/producer/EIC, we there are some go-to people for other positions. Director, like director specifically, everyone needs to be put into that role. So we have just a lot of go-to people for directing. Just the go-to person for directing is anybody who hasn't directed yet.
Yeah,
because we need to put them in that position. But someone who used to be our go-to EIC was Kelly Bork. And
Jason Lindquist.
Yes, they knew what they were doing, and they knew a lot about like all sides of what they were doing. So if Chris wasn't available, and often we would know ahead of time if Chris wasn't available, and we would just immediately call Kelly. And our go-to producer often for basketball was Selena Hope.
Yep.
And she did a great job with that. One time she was gone for one game and I had to be producer. And it was like Brendan and Reagan were like, who are you? I'm kidding. They were good with it.
Who's
Show
this
must go
guy?
on. Yeah. Who dis?
Why does Selena have red hair now?
What?
You have red hair.
Oh, yeah.
Selena doesn't.
I just caught the
That
joke.
was the joke, yeah.
Haha. So unspoken rules about directing / producing / being engineer in charge.
Oh gosh. Being able to like crisis manage and manage multiple things at once. So like with directing, multitasking is huge. Being able to look at different camera shots and graphics on your the mix feed is huge. So like I've got awful ADHD. My mind is bouncing off the walls. This is like the one place I can like really multitask, and it's awesome because I can pay attention to multiple things at once. But if I need to, I can zone in on one thing in particular. So it's a great thing to have in the creative space. But for directing, like another big thing I can say, or just any position, is like don't be on your phone. And Chris says that all the time. And it's not so much like that you're not distracted by doing that. That's huge, but you're not going to learn. If you miss something, you're like, okay, what happened? I didn't see it happen. And I know it's so tempting if you're like a director or a producer and there's just like nothing going on. You just whip out Twitter or something.
Sure.
I've definitely been guilty of that. But like staying off that is so like crucial to your development as a person working in broadcast. So that's my biggest thing for that. For engineer in charge, my biggest thing is learn as much as you can and ask questions. Questions, oh my gosh, I've asked Chris and Kelly and Jason and anybody in the department who's ever worked here. I've asked questions, even if it was something that felt stupid or like I've been told this multiple times. It's like, can you repeat it for me? That would be super helpful. Ask questions and learn. Get certified in Dante. Know how networking works and the chain of networks and how Dante interworks with that. Learn how to patch fiber. Be knowledgeable in different areas. What else? For producer, same thing. Be knowledgeable in what you're producing. Know what do I need to relay to the talent. I need to be able to relay, commercial breaks or whatever back up to control. Be able to count them down, count them out. Whatever that may be, your job is to kind of speak over whatever is going on because you have to relay information to both parties. So a lot of that is really just paying attention and just honing in on what your task is and executing as best you can.
Right. That's the way to get knowledgeable, is to be teachable, to learn things. I think one reason, like for the first semester and even a good bit of the second semester of my job, actually any time before COVID, one of the reasons why I felt just like very incompetent at this job and was kind of discouraged a lot of the time was that I was expecting myself to be more knowledgeable than teachable, to like already know everything that, I'm supposed to know and also everything that I'm not necessarily supposed to know. And so whenever I couldn't troubleshoot something because I didn't know how to do it, I just got very discouraged because it was like, you're already supposed to know this. You're already supposed to know this, even if I wasn't. So asking questions is huge. If you ask questions, then you will learn and then you will know what to do.
That's something I had to learn just over the course of my job here this semester, is that it's very rare that if you don't ask a question, you're going to learn. As in, you'll be taught what you need to know in a given situation, but if you want to know further than that, usually no one's going to tell you unless you are actively pursuing that information, right?
Right.
Just kind of like with anything in life, right? Like, unless you ask questions, you're not going to get answers to what you want to know, right? Or it's very rare that you'll get answers to what you want to know.
Being humble is also a huge thing in this profession, because if you're going to be stubborn and not listen to the people who are directing you, man, you're just not going to have a fun time. People aren't going to want to work with you, and it'll cost you a job. And that means you won't get a phone call back for a gig. So being humble and learning, even if you're stubborn and you're hurt about it for a moment, like I am, and then you move on. Don't carry it with you. Use it as a point to grow. That's huge.
Something that can be either really fun about this job or really frustrating, depending on how you look at it. EIC specifically, but also for director and producer, you deal with a lot of different crises or different problems. And so that was something that, astounded me. When I first came in, there were a lot of different problems, but I thought, there are only so many pieces of equipment that we can use. So surely there are only a certain number of problems that can go wrong. And so it was just a matter of, okay, did you turn the camera on? Oh, yeah. Okay, now turn the camera on. Now we're getting it, and things like that. But then when the screen flickers and you're getting it kind of, but not good enough for the broadcast, then it's like, what do you do? And then you figure out like how different kinds of equipment can go wrong. So that's one thing that I think, if you're in the right mindset, is a fun thing about this job, is that there aren't only, technically speaking, like for all intents and purposes, there are only a certain number of things that can go wrong, but that list of things that can go wrong is huge. And so learning how to problem solve, like take concepts from solving this one problem that you had earlier and applying it to a completely new problem is just a cool kind of thing. You get to make connections, and that's a cool kind of role that you get to play in being this problem solver role that is engineer in charge. And we're a team. Everyone helps each other out, and we all learn together. This no man is an island in the broadcast field. Everyone learns together, and Chris will often, show a lot of people, like anybody that he can after a staff meeting or something, what went wrong in a certain broadcast, so that as many people can know about that as possible, so that as many people can be able to contribute to fixing it. Yeah, so that's director, producer, and EIC. Unfortunately, Harrison has to go at this point, but we loved having you on the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
thank you for coming.
Bring me back on again where I can stay the whole time.
Oh, yeah, that's the plan. We need to get you on an installment of Garrett Grams.
Oh, please. Definitely. I've heard many a great thing.
Yes, we had like an elf cereal last time that unfortunately I couldn't.
Last recording, we had elf cereal that was maple flavored and extremely sugary.
Just like really maple flavored.
Very, like, you open the bag and the smell just hits you. And it was good if you like maple.
If you really like maple.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having you on.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Garrett and myself, for having Harrison on. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the podcast to talk with us about directing, producing, and EIC. We're about to transition into like not talking about it at all and getting into like Garrett Grams and Q&A and things like that. So if you're into that, stay tuned. If you're not, you can just shut this off. Cue transition music. Welcome back, everybody, to Auto In. We are back. Unfortunately, Harrison is not with us. It's just me and Garrett, but
it is just us this time.
We're still going to have a rip-roaring fun time.
We're not the worst people to have to spend time with, right? It's only like 15 minutes.
We're only the third worst. That's, yes.
This week's Garrett Grams is the Mandalorian cereal.
Wait, what?
I've actually been seeing this around at quite a few stores.
You have?
Yeah, well, at least the one store that I usually go to. It's been there for a while. So, like, I figure, it's probably worth trying.
Okay, like when you did the elf cereal, like I could kind of tell like what kind of thing that's supposed to be. This is a complete like out of nowhere.
Yeah,
out of left field.
I don't know what this is supposed to be. It says it's fruity cereal or fruity flavored sweetened cereal with marshmallows and other natural flavors.
Other natural flavors. I
Yeah.
love how they tack
So
that on.
it's got kind of like a Lucky Charms vibe where the charms are like the child heads. And by the child,
my
I mean
gosh.
the baby Yoda. And then like it looks like some kind of almost Cocoa Puffs looking cereal.
I've seen 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. He's opening the box right now. I've seen 2 episodes because I had never seen it before. And, as of the time of this recording, actually, by the time hopefully the episode comes out, like The Mandalorian season 2 will be within a couple days of coming out. So I had some like...
Oh, so it did good. It's topical.
Yeah. So I had like a couple family friends who were just like, we need to catch you up on this because season 2 is about to come out. But like, I don't have Disney Plus, so I wouldn't be able to watch it anyway. I would probably just watch through Phineas and Ferb if we're being honest. But after that, maybe get into The Mandalorian. Well, see, it's a good show. It had a lot more like actors that I recognized than I thought they would, like Taika Waititi and Nick Nolte. And,
Taika Waititi was in The Mandalorian?
yeah.
Wait, who do you play?
I do not remember. It might have been that like bot that was like being all cool.
Yeah, the IG whatever.
Very possibly. I can't confirm that, but he definitely was in the like opening or closing credits, probably both of The Mandalorian. So he's one of the...
Did he direct it maybe?
I don't think so. He
Okay.
was listed as an actor.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and so I was like, wow, that's also kind of out of left field because I was expecting like to recognize nobody.
Yeah.
But then Nick Nolte came up and I was like, oh, well, I know that he's famous because one time I saw like a comedy sketch about him from like Kevin James.
Oh, nice.
But that's the only way I know him.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't know Taika Waititi was in that, but I didn't recognize anyone else from that. It's a good series though.
I've been wanting
Like, it
to
was
see
surprisingly
Jojo
good.
Rabbit from
Oh,
Taika
Jojo
Waititi.
Rabbit's really good.
I've heard
I
good
really
things.
enjoyed that one. It's very funny and it has a really good message too.
Yeah,
You know what else probably has a good message?
and is probably good.
The flavor of the cereal that I'm about to put into my mouth, unless you want to put your mouth into, the cereal into your mouth.
I want you to put your mouth into your cereal first.
Yes. But you want me to put
Oh,
my mouth.
I'm sorry. I just muted you because I thought you were...
Okay. No, I mute myself, Seth.
Oh, my bad. Okay, so he's putting his mouth in his cereal. More accurately, he's putting his cereal in his mouth. He's given like some weird looks and kind of oh, uh-oh.
That is literally just Fruit Loops.
Are you
with
serious?
Marshmallows. It's literally just Fruit Loops with marshmallows.
Wow.
And barely any marshmallows at that.
Okay.
And they like barely look like the child.
I'm going to be honest. This does have the blandest color scheme I've ever seen in a cereal. And I'm
It
talking
really
like
does.
chocolate cereals as well.
No, like the Hershey Kisses cereal we had. Were you there for that one?
Yes, I was there for that one because
Okay.
Caleb was there as well, I think.
That's right. Yeah, we did
Graphics
do that
episode.
one with Caleb. Yeah, the Hershey Kisses cereal was much more interesting looking, I guess. It had like a unique kind of texture to the look of it. I mean, it had a unique texture eating it as well. But, Seth looks... How do you describe that face, Seth?
This is Fruit Loops.
Yeah, exactly.
It
Thank you.
doesn't say it's Fruit Loops, but it's Fruit
No,
Loops.
it's the exact same flavoring as Fruit Loops. So they must use the same like chemicals or whatever they put into Fruit Loops to make the same thing. It's like instead of loops, it's like fruit balls, you know? It's fruit orbs.
And the marshmallows are you hardly taste them.
Yeah, they have no flavor and they're just kind of there probably to break up the monotony of the tan. Who decided tan cereal was a good idea? Like literally, it's just kind of like an off yellow color.
Like in anything other than Reese's Puffs.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even like Reese's Puffs yellow. It's just like when your Vans are like 4 years old. Vans, the shoe, not a car. I mean, maybe a car, but like when your like Vans old schools have kind of been worn out. It's been like 4 years. They're kind of like, you're kind of on their deathbed. You're about ready to trade up to a new one. And they just have that like weird off yellow color to them. It kind of looks like that, not gonna lie.
I mean, it's good. I enjoy it. I like the taste, but like, I would just get Fruit Loops.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably cheaper too, not gonna lie, because it doesn't have the Mandalorian on it.
All right, so we're gonna get into Q&A now. Would you like to take the first question, Garrett?
Nancy from Penang, Malaysia. She asks, should you halt for animals if it causes danger for the passengers in a car?
Should you halt for animals? One thing I think we need to establish is what kind of animals. Are we talking like...
Also, we should establish what kind of danger too, I think.
Oh, okay.
Because it is very conditional to, I guess, the type of animal if you really want to get down to that. If you think some animals are more valuable than others. And then, which is, that wasn't even...
Do we dare say that?
That wasn't even a joke. That was legitimately like, for example, there's some, I forgot what they're called, but there's like vegan, sorry. I got made fun of the other day for calling them vegans, but
I've never heard that.
Vegans / vegetarian types that don't eat land creatures, but will eat fish.
Oh. Pescatarians.
Yes. But
Presbyterians.
Presbyterians.
No, those are different people.
I don't know if that's like a convictional thing or if it's just like some kind of health thing. I don't know, because I know fish is technically better for you than a lot of land creatures. But
yeah, vertebrates are the only people / things that have feelings. So once you get into invertebrates, then
naturally
they don't. Actually, I have no idea. Actually, I think that there was like a scientific study done that like plants have feelings. That when you cut them, they like cry inside.
I have actually heard that. If I remember correctly, the science behind it is more so that the plants seemingly reacted to pain in the sense of if you air quotes, because I don't know whether plants don't have nervous systems, so we don't know if they actually can like feel pain necessarily. But if you were to quote unquote harm a plant, it'll like move itself away from whatever's harming it or like grow in a direction to avoid that.
Oh,
so like for example, if you were to like consistently kind of like cut at a plant, it a lot of times they'll like learn to grow away from that.
Well, that's interesting.
Which is very interesting. Yeah. So I think that's what it means.
But not that plants have feelings and you might make them cry.
I mean, they might. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we can never know. We're not plants.
It's true.
We just know that they grow away from things that
they grow away
might be
from
able
knives
to,
and swords and probably gunfire.
Unless.
Then again, I don't know how well a plant would survive.
I'm just thinking like somebody just like pulling out an AR like on a potted plant, like take that.
Let's see you grow away from this one. And just
so like overkill. But back to the question at hand. So
okay, that's actually a good point. So the danger involved. Is this kind of danger as in like life-threatening danger, or is this danger as in kind of like they might get whiplash or they might get like emotional stress over it?
Danger, I think, might not be like certain death. Otherwise, it might be a bit more obvious to say that you like should not stop because people are like inherently more valuable than animals. But if it's like, injury, like kind of devastating injury, then that kind of creates a bit of a gray area. I would say in the case of like, if somebody's gonna like get their foot sore or something, like stop. They can get over that. But like if they're about to get paralyzed from like the neck down, then yeah, I'd say don't stop.
Like, for example, I've given my mom whiplash before because I have had to slam on the brakes for like a cat or a dog or a squirrel or something like that. Just in my neighborhood or whatever, where I'm kind of driving, it suddenly jumps out on the road. I'm like, and like, and then she's like, oh, Garrett, why'd you do that? And I'm like, because there's an animal. I mean, she understood. But like,
I love like she has such a reaction like, Garrett, why would you do that? And you're like, because there's an animal.
because there's a dog.
Inherently, like just the answer is, it's up to your own discretion, but inherently I would argue that humans are more valuable than animals. And so if you were to like ruin a person's physical, like ruin a person's, or rather decrease the person's
State of living.
Quality of life, then I would say just don't stop.
Yeah, personally, I'm kind of a similar mindset in that if it's anything further than maybe a minor injury, it's not worth it.
And for Christians specifically, this is applied in the context, this verse in Matthew 6 is applied in the context of the Father, like God providing for your needs, saying that he even provides for the needs of the crows and the flowers. And if he provides for their needs, then, since you are so much more valuable than them as a human, how much more will he provide for your needs? Now, if you take that to a fundamental level, there's obviously support that humans are more valuable than animals in the world. I mean, this is also like they are made in God's image as supported in Genesis either 1 or 2, I forget. Whenever humans come in, technically
both, but I believe the specific wording of they were created in God's image comes in Genesis 2.
Yeah, let us make man in our own image, in our likeness. This is something that he did not say about animals, just because he didn't make animals in his image. So, his whole plan revolved around the reconciliation of humans to God through Jesus, and it was not offered to animals. So, well, that's a great segue into our next question from Corinne from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. She asks, "What are some weird things about the U.S.?"
Ooh,
and
that's going to be more of a question for you, Seth.
This is a good question to like have me on the show for, because I haven't like lived a lot in the U.S., but like the answer that everyone's going to give, and I'll agree with them, is you guys just drive on a weird side of the road in a weird seat of the car. Your like measurements of like feet are weird, inches are weird. Celsius and Fahrenheit, for instance, for a lot of my friends who have like assimilated from those other countries into the U.S. have gotten pretty comfortable with Fahrenheit. It took them a while, but they got pretty comfortable with it. I just never quite got comfortable with it. Like people will say like, man, it's a nice day out. It's like 56 degrees. And I'll be like,
you're like, wait, the world's ending?
Well, yeah, I actually have been. So I have been in a car that I believe was about 50 degrees Celsius. And,
oh my goodness.
Hey Siri, what's 50 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
50 degrees Celsius is 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
122 degrees Fahrenheit.
How did you survive that?
We didn't touch the seatbelts. We didn't put on the seatbelts because actually so in our car in Sudan, in the back we had we could fit 3 people in there. The left seat had a seatbelt, the right seat had a seatbelt, but the middle seat didn't. And so we all loved the middle seat and we fought over it. I mean, I think there was even a hump in it. Exactly. Well, it was just because we didn't have to put on the seatbelt.
Oh.
We were, boys. And so we were like, haha, adventure.
Look at me, I'm cool.
Adventure equals.
If we get in a car wreck, I'm turning into a rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gonna be a living projectile on the. Well, that being said, I cannot think of a better segue into talking about what's going to happen next week.
Yep.
We've talked about pretty much all of the roles, I think, at this point that you might be assigned to in in broadcasting. So, camera operating, directing, shading, we've gone into all that. And so next week we're going to be moving into what does a student worker do when they come into work. And we're going to be looking specifically at the roles of production assistants. So if you're not a senior producer, you're a production assistant, and you get to do all kinds of crazy rip-roaring fun times stuffs, like being a pack mule and
like carrying XLRs or rolling XLRs
and watching people troubleshoot. No, you get to learn a lot from being a production assistant. So
being a production assistant is definitely fun.
Yeah, we're gonna pull a production assistant on to this podcast, but by pull I mean like literally we're dragging them through the door, like against their will.
So we do. Harrison earlier, he was actually tied to the chair. Yeah,
so we're gonna get into that, and it's gonna be a party. It's gonna be a socially distanced party, not virtual, but socially distanced, and all the kinds of fun
as all
stuff.
best parties are.
I've reached the end of my capacity to speak.
Sounds like a good time for an outro.
Indeed. All right. Any last words before we get into the outro?
The Mandalorian works better as a TV show than it does a cereal.
Yes, I'd have to agree. All right. Well, this has been Auto In, hosted by Seth Kelly and Garrett Walder with special guest Harrison Witcher, with music produced and performed by Jesse Liked and logo designed by John Brizino. Thank you for listening and see you next week. Auto out.